Guys, welcome to another session of interviews with entrepreneurs. And today I'm chatting to Rachel Luther, who is the founder and CEO of Check Off My List. Now, we're going to chat to Rachel about her journey as an entrepreneur, coming from being one of the first virtual assistants, I think, right, Rachel, to actually creating a global business around that. So, Rachel, welcome. So nice to see you again. How are you doing?
Yes, it is wonderful to see you.
You're well. Fantastic. So let's start this off with some context. What is Check Off My List?
So Check Off Your List is a back office support firm that is made up of virtual assistants who are experts in bookkeeping, HR, social media, web design, graphic design, executive assistants, all of those things. And it's made up of a team, and each person has their own expertise. And we provide service to small business owners, entrepreneurs, and really allow them to have a full office at their fingertips without having all of that staff and full-time salary for all of those experts. So in a nutshell, that is
in a nutshell. Well, that's awesome. So I mean, it's not a lot of virtual assistants that I meet are kind of like jack of all trades,
Yes.
Which kind of does concern me. I'll be honest. This might be a personal preference, but when someone says, "Oh, no, I can do that, all of that," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not."
So here's the thing on that. I know exactly what you're talking about, and some people are very talented and multi-talented, but there are only certain things that we're passionate about, and there are only certain things that we enjoy doing, and really there are only certain things that we are inclined to put first and to really prioritize. And by being a jack of all trades, so to speak, you're not going to be an expert in all of those things, and you're not going to be passionate about all of those things. So as a business owner, when you use someone like that, that was me starting out, really. I'm describing myself 10 years ago. And I think I did well for my clients, but I could only go so far. I could only do so much, and I could only scale a business with my client so far. And now with a team who I have an expert in HR, I have an expert in bookkeeping, I have an expert in social media, an expert in copywriting, all of those things, the sky's the limit in so many ways, because when you need something, we have that kind of at our fingertips to say, "Oh, you need this copy. Well, let's shoot that off to Adam. And now's this great copy. And Rachel over here is going to make it look amazing," and different things like that. So that's, I think, the difference. Like the jack of all trade, while it has its place, that's how I started. Certainly don't disagree with that in some ways, but I think it has its limitations. So each entrepreneur needs to figure out where they need to be.
My biggest concern with it always, when someone's jack of all trades is, like you mentioned, you talked about passion, right? Now, being someone that I hire people based on passion, because I can teach a skill, but I can't teach passion. So, if you're not passionate about something, I know it's going to reflect on the quality of the work that you do. So I'd rather get 3 or 4 different people that are passionate about certain areas, rather than get one person that's, passionate about 2 areas, but, even though they're capable, they might have the skill on all of that. I don't disagree with that at all, but I'm looking for that passion aspect, because I find personally that it just adds that extra level of, quality to the work that you do. So I know that a lot of people might disagree with me, but that's kind of my view.
Yes. I look at kind of what you're talking about as the taking ownership of the task and of the responsibility. If someone doesn't like to do it, they're not passionate about it, you can, like you said, you can teach that. You can teach not the passion, but you can teach the skills. But the passion is what allows someone to think creatively about a task, what allows someone to improve upon what you've taught them. And it really helps them take the process that you've created as a business owner, flying by the seat of your pants, trying to grow, and say, "Oh, great start. Let's do this." And it's so much better, so much more efficient, so much more effective. That's what you get when you have that passion, when you have that expert versus a jack of all trades.
100%. I agree with that. So let's take a few steps back. Okay. Tell us a bit, where have you come from? And give us some background, from where you started to where you are now. And, also answer the question, have you always been an entrepreneur, or, when did this start? What was your
Yeah.
transition like into entrepreneurship?
Yes. So I would say I was grown up to be an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. I saw my dad start and build a business. He actually bought a business and built it from a coffee shop to a full service restaurant, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all of that. And so I had a front row seat to what that looks like and what it takes to build a business and to be an entrepreneur. There were lots of things I liked. I loved the income flexibility, like the sky's the limit. You can take control of what you make and all of that. But I also didn't really like all the time that I saw him put in and all the work and the hours over hours to make the restaurant succeed. And he was very successful. And at the time, that's what you did. To be successful and to own a business, you showed up for work, you worked all day, you did, and you put your time in and you succeed. Today, there's a smarter way. And so like I saw that growing up, and I, as a result, didn't think twice about starting my own business. So many people are like, oh, that's such a big thing. That's so scary. How did you start a business in your early 20s?
Yes. Yeah.
And for me, I was just like, well, I just did it. I printed a business card. I said, hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a virtual assistant. And not everyone is like that. And I realized now.
Not at all.
I realize now looking back though, like my parents trained me to be that way. My mom homeschooled my siblings and I before homeschooling was a thing. Like they wanted to do something. They looked at each other and said, let's do it. We can do this. And my mom was a teacher, so she had that training. And, so it wasn't because I was homeschooled, but it was that I saw my parents step out and make decisions and make big moves. And so that's kind of how I then started my business right out of college. And it was, to be a virtual assistant. Nobody knew really what a virtual assistant was. It was not original to me. I'm not, I didn't make it up, but I heard of it and I thought, oh, that would have helped my parents. That's exactly what they needed that they didn't know existed, that didn't exist. And I was like, I can do that. I did that for them. I'm trained. I have a background in bookkeeping and accounting and communications, and like, I can do this. So I printed a business card and went to networking meetings and built check off your lists, just me to be able to stay home with my daughter, make some extra money and that type of thing. So then fast forward 10 plus years later, my business has grown, my family has grown, and I've grown as a professional and now run a company that's much bigger than me providing services. So
let me ask you a question about you. You were talking about your childhood and your mom and them really being the driving card, your mom and your dad behind the driving card behind you becoming an entrepreneur. A lot of people say entrepreneurs are made, others say entrepreneurs are born. What's your thoughts on that?
I've never had someone ask me that specifically. I've heard it before, but I've never thought like, do I fully believe that? I think for sure entrepreneurs are made, but the younger that starts, the more successful that training is.
I love that.
I think. Is that a cop-out answer? Because that's almost like both. Like, well, yes, it's made, but if it's practically starts from when you're born, it's almost like being born into it.
Yeah, and so people, a lot of people say you're either born to be an entrepreneur or you're not, right? And I agree with you again. We are saying, well, no, you don't have to be born with a whole entrepreneur flair. It's based on your upbringing. I think a lot of it could be your upbringing in terms of the way your parents have taught you, and that makes you an entrepreneur. Or it could be circumstances, that force you into, like maybe a retrenchment, or a layoff or something like that, where you're kind of forced in a position. And I'm like, I need to become an entrepreneur. I need to go and sell something to provide for my family. So
and entrepreneurs are made. How my dad started. My dad did not quit his cushy full-time job to go start a business. And he was laid off through downsizing. I mean, no fault of his own. He was very good at what he did and found himself with no job and was like, well, this is what's my next step? Well, I've wanted to own a business. Here we go. Yeah. And it's hard when you have children, a wife, responsibilities to take that risk. And I think risk aversion is also a factor in that. Some people are just more risk adverse, and that's okay. And sometimes that's the kick in the pants to get them to move in that direction. Other people are like, yeah, I'll do it. and they like a challenge. The risk is not as much of a factor. And I think those are the people who might dive into it head first without
so you
little
think
gentle
that
push.
Yeah. So you think that, I mean, entrepreneurs tend to be people that like to take risks, or not necessarily like to take risks. They're willing to take risks. I think that's the problem.
Yes.
You know, they're
So
willing
I'm a
to
numbers.
take calculated risks. Let's say,
Yeah, that's
calculated
exactly
risks.
what I was going to say. I'm a numbers girl. And so show me the numbers. And if the numbers look right and it's worth it, it's a calculated risk. Okay, I'll take that risk. And it might be big, but I ran my numbers. I did my research, and then 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, we can do this and take that step. And I think that, that's a wise way to take risks. There are then some very interesting.
Although I must say, when I was younger, I mean, we're talking, what's this, 27 years ago. Yeah, I'm giving my age away. When I first started, when I was 18. And, I must be honest, my first business was more like, yeah, I want to do this, kind of thing. There wasn't, even though I'd studied accounting and I'd gone to college for accounting and all of that, I didn't do the 2 + 2. It was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Let's just do this. And obviously the business flopped as a result of that, but
a lot do at the beginning.
it was a good learning experience. But that was when I learned that, okay, well, maybe let's not make decisions based on how I feel about it. Let's actually do some math around that exercise. I think of that. So when you got started as a VA, I mean, you obviously, as you mentioned, you come from a family where, that have been entrepreneurs, that they've done well for themselves. And that when you started off, did you start off with a big capital layout, or investment to start your business? Or did you just start like, yeah, I had enough to print my business cards and I went out and I networked? Which one was it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The nice thing about being a virtual assistant is there's not a lot of startup costs.
Exactly.
Really.
That's what
I
I'm
did
thinking.
some marketing as far as printed some business cards and brochures, and I used my trusty laptop that I already had from college and started designing my own website and doing those things. Like, it was my time and effort and energy that I put in more than capital. I will say I was in a fortunate position to where I was married. My husband had a good, secure job, and I had the luxury of knowing the bills are essentially paid. So it's not like I had to worry about, must sign this client to pay rent. And that was that was a benefit that I had starting out that not everyone has.
It relieves quite a lot of stress in the beginning, I think.
It did.
From that
Yes. So a lot of my investment at the beginning was my time sitting on my couch, very pregnant self with my laptop on my belly, doing a business plan, doing a marketing plan, marketing matrix, and just really starting from the ground up. Is like, so where do I want to take this? What do I want to do? And I think oftentimes people don't do that even. And it's not because I was so smart. It was mostly I had time. Like I could do that. And so I did. And that laid the groundwork for when clients started coming in, because it didn't take long for that to happen. And then I was ready to go. I knew what I wanted, where I was going, and went from there.
So I've actually got 2 questions based on your answer. Yeah, I've got 2 questions. I'm actually going to ask someone else's question first. Was it hard to get your first clients? And do you have any tips as a VA, to get your first clients?
So my first clients was, I'm trying to think, those first couple clients that I got, they were not difficult as far as to get the client if they were looking for a VA. The most difficult thing I had was people would then be like, so what time are you showing up at my office? Do you not understand the virtual part of virtual assistant? Now, this is 10 plus years ago, so that was my hurdle, which I think is probably a different hurdle now.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what I'm trying to think. And I would say, as far as getting clients, the biggest thing in a virtual assistant to a business owner relationship is the relationship, like really investing in their business, understanding their business, and really showing them that you are joining their team, you're on their team, and you want to help them succeed. And I think really getting to know them and that know, like, and trust, which so many people say, and that almost sounds cliche in ways, but there's truth in it. There's a reason why everybody says know, like, trust. And I think especially when you are working with a business owner who's outsourcing for the first time, that's their baby. Like, they have built this, they are emotionally invested. They have put blood, sweat, tears, and sleepless nights into this. Exactly. And now you want me to let you do
trust
what?
you.
Trust right? And so I really think that that's what it comes down to, and really like showing that you're on their team and that their success is your success, because that's the awesome thing about being a virtual assistant. Like, that is literally your job description in so many ways. You are there to help that client succeed and help them grow their business. And that's by doing insert an array of things depending on what your expertise is. But that's one of the things that our virtual assistants that work for Check Off Your List love, is they love the giving back to the small business and that relationship and working with their clients and becoming close with them and developing those relationships and those goals and really becoming a part of their business. So hopefully that answers that question. Like, those are the things that run through my mind as I think about it.
Definitely. I think that definitely answers it. I think the biggest thing for us entrepreneurs in terms of hiring someone is, you touched on that, is the trust aspect in, are you going to be as passionate and do it the way that I did it? Because, as an entrepreneur, when you start out, you're doing everything in your own business. So we've done everything from making the tea to doing the books to the graphics and everything in between. So we kind of know what we want. And it's that fear of handing off to someone to say, you know what, Rachel, I'm going to kind of trust you with these graphics and this copy, and you do it, this is my lifeline that I'm pretty much giving you, And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle that someone would face. And that's just also adding to your answer as well. The other question that I have is, you touched on, when you were talking about, getting your first clients, you were talking a lot about doing your business plan, doing your marketing plan, etc. Now, what I see a trend in so many entrepreneurs, no one does it. It boggles my mind, but no one does it. How important is that planning? How important has that planning been to your success?
Well, I would say very important. Now, that is almost literally my job description. Like, that is almost all I do. At the beginning, that was a portion, and I did sales and I provided the services and all of those things. But as Check Off Your List grew, I realized that that was where I was most effective, is working on that business plan and thinking not about who's doing services today and who's getting what they need and tomorrow and all of that, but thinking, what's 2022 going to look like? Where are we going? What are we doing? What services do our clients need that fit with where Check Off Your List wants to go? And all of those types of things. And I think that for me, that was part of why I started with a business plan and a marketing plan. One, I had the time to do it, but two, like, that's ultimately where my passion was and where I was really home and really in my niche.
Excited you're doing it.
Yes. And so I think that's where, like, now, like, that was so important that that's now my full-time job at Check Off Your List. I don't provide the services anymore. I don't do our sales. I don't do our marketing. I don't do our HR and hiring and any of that. I am
your strategy now. I mean, you're working on your business rather than in your business.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. Now, let's talk a bit about pivoting. Have you had to pivot your business? I mean, you obviously have pivoted from a one-man show to, building a global brand, but can you take us through some of the challenges that you faced or setbacks you faced that have caused you to pivot?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that immediately comes to mind is, as we grew, I began to outsource and learning that, that's one first initial pivot, so to speak. Yes. And that worked and went through. But the bigger one that I would say was like, oh, there are problems. Like, I need to adjust. I need to change. What is it? Was when I was managing our team of virtual assistants and realizing I'm just not that good at it.
At least you're honest. I love it.
Oh, yes, I am honest. I try to be. I'm sure I have delusions of my own, but I try. And I realized, like, I was not effective. I wasn't doing a good job. And I think that's very important as a business owner to be able to realize that. And I realized turnover was more than what I wanted as far as our employees go. And I would get so frustrated. I'd be like, I thought I told you this is what you need to do. Why did you not do these things? And then I'd realize, well, I'd have my husband look at my email and be like, why did they not do this? And he's like, because you didn't actually tell them. Like, you didn't communicate it in the way that says, do this, whatever. Like, as a somewhat tangible example, I didn't have that skill set. That was just not for me. And so I had to realize I've got to do something. Like, I am now in a position that this is not for me. So my pivot, because I outsourced, that's my solution to a lot of my problems. I hired someone to be our customer relationship manager. So they then managed our team, helped them perform at their best, which was not my skill set, helped them understand our client needs, and also worked with our clients to say, what do you need? Okay, well, how about this? And how about this? And build that relationship and that support that we do for them, and help that to continue to grow so that they really get the value that they need. And so that was my pivot, was then to hire someone. And that was the result of exponential growth at Check Off Your List. That's when we really started to see the growth that got us to where we are now. It wasn't me in that seat for sure. It was letting someone else do that, having them do that, and then allowing me to get back to the strategy, to the big picture, those types of things where I excel and where I function best. And then we just started seeing even more exponential results. So I would say that was one of my big pivot moments for Check Off.
I mean, it takes a lot of self-realization and, to actually accept, to say, listen, I'm actually not good at something, maybe I need to bring someone else in, because as entrepreneurs, I think most entrepreneurs think, well, I'm good at all of it. And I must say, I've also been in your situation, where exactly the same kind of situation, actually, where I just realized, what, I actually need to hire someone to deal with the staff on the ground. I mean, I had just over 92 people working for me at that stage, and I was trying to, manage each aspect of that. And it's like, only when I put a management team in place, to actually manage it, did we actually grow exponentially. So, but it also took me, a bit of my pride to say, listen, Dennis, you kind of suck at this, but you've got to focus on the bigger picture. You're very good with strategy, and you're talking at such a high level that people on the ground don't always understand what you're on about. So let's talk partnerships. Do you have partners in your business?
Partners? Not really. Like, I'm not. I'm sorry, what?
Like shareholders or investors?
No, not at this time. I have a management team, like our executive level, that are very invested in Check Off Your List, and I work very closely with them, but we currently don't have partners, shareholders, that type of thing.
You're a 100% sole owner of Check Off My List. That is amazing. I love that. So I'm not going to ask that question. But the next question is, how do you find, being a virtual assistant, how do you connect with your clients in a meaningful way? Given that, everything is online, there's always that, face-to-face, it's easy to create a proper relationship. How do you do it online? How do you create that meaningful connection with your clients?
Well, that is thank you to technology. Really, it's a second level communication as well. So like twofold. We do a lot of these virtual calls like this, hopping on a Zoom call, Teams, that type of thing, because there's nothing like face-to-face interaction. You don't have to be in the same room. 2020 showed us that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? But you can hop on a Teams call and chat and see each other and read body language and really get to know each other. And that is a big part of it, as far as like communication is a big key. And that would be it. So we do weekly touch bases with majority of our clients, if they will let us. Like, we try and push and all of that. Some entrepreneurs are like, I don't think I want to do that. And we work with whatever, we accommodate to the different scenarios. Some people we talk to way more, but that's just like let's just touch base for 10 minutes and be like, okay, these were our goals. We met them. Where are we going? What are our goals? That type of thing. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
I love that.
That conversation. We try to do that once a week with our clients. And that's where we really make a lot of progress. Like, that's, as a business, you grow and you meet expectations and exceed, and go past your goals rather than hope you make it. And so that's it as far as that goes. I would say also, as far as communication, like we really strive to over communicate, because in a virtual
love that.
in a virtual world, you don't, if I'm your assistant, I'm working for you, you don't see me in your office space and know, oh yeah, I sent that email, she's got that, because she's in the office working, and so we often will, work with our virtual assistants to say, oh yeah, Dennis, I got that, it's on my radar, I'll have that to you by close of business tomorrow, or I'll get that to you later this afternoon, or whatever. Just that second level of, yeah, I've got this, so that you don't have to worry about it.
I think that is extremely important when you're in this, let's call it virtual environment, and that it's because I know I've been in that situation where I've asked someone to do something and say, sure, okay, cool, they're on it. And a few days go past and I'm kind of wondering, well, are you on it or are you not? It's just like, listen, this is what's happened, and I'll get it to you by Friday or Thursday or whatever. Like, just give me that extra bit of, reassurance almost. For an entrepreneur. It's that reassurance that you're on the ball. I might not always read all the emails, because I know if it's really important, you're going to, give me a call, or something, or I'll get a meeting request for a Zoom or something. Then I know it's important. If it's an email, I'm kind of like, well, I'm seeing the emails come through, so I know you're on it. I'm not going to worry about it.
And that is the thing. One of the things as we screen new employees is, what do you do in an instance where a client makes assumptions that were not what you talked about? So they now have this unrealistic expectation of, you said we'd send this out on Friday, but in that we said you need to give us the work on Wednesday so that we can prepare it. So then we get that work Friday morning. What do you do? Because that can happen. Exactly. And so how do you deal with that? Well, I'd pick up the phone. Like that's something that, like, we need to talk about this now, because now our timeline's way off and we've got to figure out. Now, obviously we should have been following up from Wednesday, and like whole thing, but that's what I'm talking about as far as like communication and really trying to get our team members to track their own projects and say, oh, hey, Dennis, you were going to send that Wednesday and it's already 3. I just wanted to make sure like we're on target. Did you redirect?
Because we get busy and we get distracted, and let's face it, the stuff we're outsourcing isn't a priority for us.
Ideally, it's out of sight, out of mind. That's the whole concept, freeing up your mental space to do the other things. And so we have to take ownership of that mental space, though, not the mental space, but that we have to take ownership and put our mental space on it. And so that second level of following up and helping the entrepreneur remember their own deadlines in a kind, friendly way, to say, if you want this to go out Friday, I need to do XYZ. So I need this today. It's already 3. Can I help you? Can I collect that? Or can I do this? Whatever, to just make it happen as best as possible. So I think those are just the little communication things that
but it makes the world of difference. It really makes the world of difference. It's those little things that people can do within their businesses that, just give it that 5-star kind of rating, in my view, just like that's quality, at the end of the day. So let's talk marketing. How important is marketing in your business?
I would say it is very important. It's actually something that I have leaned into probably this last year more than other things. As Check Off Your List has grown, the roles and positions at Check Off Your List has grown. And I refer to it all as like the awkward teenage years of this part of Check Off Your List. We're trying to sort out new things. We now have new positions and new structures, and what does this look like? And part of my job is leaning into those things and figuring out what is our solution for that. And one of those things has been our marketing and our sales and that type of thing, figuring out what works for us and what makes the most sense, what gets results, what doesn't, because you try, and we don't want to just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, so that's something that I've been leaning into probably over this last year. It's been a while to work with our team and figure some of those things out, because we have some phenomenal marketing people on our team, and I am in a lot of ways our target market. So I can provide our target market perspective from someone who knows Check Off Your List, because I eat, sleep, and breathe it sometimes.
I could imagine. So, you've predominantly grown organically over the last several years. Or what's it? How long is it now? 10 years? Or how long has it been?
Yeah, 10 plus years. Yeah.
10 plus years of this business. You've predominantly grown organically. You haven't really focused on paid advertising.
Correct. Actually, yeah, that was the next thing that I was going to say. We do a lot of referral. And I think that is very much leads to what I was talking about, how it's so relationship based as far as like, how do we get our first client? How do you sell you sell a relationship and you get those types of clients by personal referral. So a lot of our growth and marketing has come from, hey, we work with Dennis and Dennis's buddy over here. They were having happy hour the other night and he was so busy trying to get everything done. And Dennis is like, you got to call Rachel. You need to talk to her team or whoever your assistant is. And that's how we get a lot of our business for sure. And we have done some lead generation. We have invested in some lead generation type of tasks and activities to help us find like our target market business owner, that type of thing. And that has worked out well. That's been things we've done off and on, but majority of our growth has been organic referral type of growth.
I think it kind of kills the argument. A lot of entrepreneurs argue, I just don't have money for marketing, etc. I need a lot of money for doing Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever ads, TikTok, whatever it is, and they underestimate the power of organic marketing. Yes, it is a slower process, right? So, okay, 100%, it's a slow process. But once it builds up momentum, it's a machine that just doesn't stop. I mean, even my own business, I used to invest quite a lot into Facebook advertising and stuff, into my mentorship business and my online courses and stuff. And I honestly don't have to anymore. I hardly spend anything on it anymore because the organic side has just grown so much that it actually just generates. And I think that, a lot of people would ask the question saying, how did you do your marketing? And was it organic? And does it really work? And you've answered that question. Yes, it does. Okay, it's taken a while, but it did work, and your business has grown to a global brand as a result of it. So let's. One of the questions is, okay. Well, before I get to that question, we'll put that in a different category. I'm going to ask you about competition, right? I have to ask you about this because I must get, on average, probably 5-6 Facebook messages a day. Or Instagram messages a day from virtual assistants, wanting to help me in some way or form. Okay. Yeah. There's obviously a lot of competition in the market that you're in. How do you create that differentiator? How do you create that differentiator that's going to make a client say, listen, I want to deal with Rachel. I don't want to deal with that person or that company or whatever the case is. Because let's face it, you might have been one of the first, but right now, I mean, almost every third or fourth person you're speaking to is some kind of virtual assistant at the end of the day. How do you deal with that competition? How do you differentiate yourself?
Yes. So the market is becoming saturated for sure. Reason being, there's not a lot of startup costs. And there are a lot of people who sell courses and podcasts and YouTube channels that say, you can be a virtual assistant, leave the 9 to 5, you can do this.
Pay $47 for my course and we'll teach you how.
Yep. And I am not saying that they can't by any means, but that is the culture right now. And so a lot of people are then investing in these things. And now I'm going to be a virtual assistant and I can do this. What I think sets apart is the experience and the expertise in what they're doing. So many times then you end up with I do all of these things. I'll look at a website for someone and like, do you really? Like you're a bookkeeper and an SEO strategist and a copywriter? Really? Like,
it's
and a web designer.
A red flag already.
Right. You do all of those things. And that's where I feel like that's a differentiator as far as like what sets check off your list apart. And that type of thing. Now, there are other check off your lists. There are other, there are a lot, it's growing, it's become a thing, and that's great. And quite frankly, there's enough business to go around. There definitely is. A ton of business owners, I would beg to say, majority of business owners could use a virtual assistant in some form, some capacity. It makes sense. And so I feel like that is what sets apart as far as their expertise. So if you get a message from one of those virtual assistants and you're looking, that's a viable option. I'm not saying it's not, but I would be really intrigued to know, okay, what's their training? What's their background? What have they done that actually qualifies them to be a virtual assistant and to do this aspect of your business? And that's where we hire team members who are almost overqualified for the position that they do at Check Off Your List, because they become that integral to their clients, and they fill those next level positions for their clients, which is just another benefit for the business owner, because they're not just dealing with, oh, my niece who's going to school is going to do my bookkeeping. Like there's a difference between that and hiring someone who has years and years of experience doing bookkeeping for multiple different industries, different companies, and has filed taxes for some of them and handles different forms and things like that. They're just informed. There's a big difference in service at that point. Not to say one's not a good option, like both can be a viable option depending on what you're looking for.
I think the big question to entrepreneurs is, at the end of the day, they don't know what questions to ask a virtual assistant for that. I mean, I know I've been through, I've learned the hard way of what I need to look for in a virtual assistant. I mean, I've been through that, picking, straight odd people from Pakistan and Kazakhstan and everywhere else, putting them together because of it's really good rate, I can get it really cheap. Let's see what happens. And, it was a disaster. And, I had to learn the hard way through a lot of trial and error. And let's face it, a lot of money wasted, to try and find the right kind of people to, outsource my stuff to. So it's kind of like, I think one of the questions is, we've actually got a question about exactly what I want to do. Ask it is, well, what are the things that we need to check for if we're looking for a virtual assistant? That was the question. So, so do you have?
We can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What are let's say top 5 or 10 things that you'd say, Jonathan here needs to, ask a virtual assistant to make sure that he's finding the right kind of person?
Yes. So I would focus on, like I'd already said, expertise. Like, what are they really good at? And that person who has multiple things on their website and does those things, there's something that they are more inclined to, that they're an expert in. So it might be just talking to them and figuring out, which do you prefer? What are you actually trained in? Like, is your best, and starting there. So I would definitely focus on training and that type of thing. Okay. Or just to point blank, like just basic, are they more qualified to do it than what you want? Because that's what you're going for. And that same concept kind of like segues into the next thing is to think a step ahead of yourself. Like, you can solve this problem right now, but if you're building a growing business, ideally, let's think scalability. So let's go one step further than like solve my problem right now, which sometimes we're putting out a fire and we grab the closest water that we can and throw it. And there's credibility to that, but ideally, so let's think scalability. Where are we going? And is this a good solution for that? So can your virtual assistant grow with you? Can it expand to what you need it to be, which is how I ended up with a full service firm, to allow our clients the option and the ability to grow with us. Not all of our clients use all of our services. They might come on as just a bookkeeping client, but as their business grows, and all of a sudden they need a revamp on their website, they already have someone they know, like, and trust, that they can then use that established relationship to get their website refreshed, rather than, well, now I've got to find time to go and find a web designer and start over again to find what I'm looking for. And so scalability, like, can this grow with your business? And from there, I would also think about communication and how do they communicate, and does that work for you? Because not every style works for everyone. And that's part of the process that we use as we bring on clients. Our customer relationship manager gets to know the clients, and she reads them well as they come on, and she'll know, oh, Lisa and Dennis, they'll jive. They'll be able to talk, they'll be able to communicate well, and this will work well. So then that is part of it as well, to be able to figure out our inclinations as far as communication and the way that we work, a good match. So it might be figuring out, like, do they work the same times of day as you when you need them on those faster responses things? Or is their turnaround time what you expect? And obviously everybody on both sides need to be realistic in all of those
course,
things.
I think that's was my next question. So how do you manage those expectations in terms of realistic timelines? Because I know entrepreneurs, everything is urgent and it needs to be done now, which isn't necessarily the case, but how do you manage that?
And I can speak from the entrepreneur side. Something will be weighing on me and I'm like, I got to get to this. And so finally I send it off to my assistant or my team member, whoever's going to handle it. And I'm like, yes, is it done? So I know that's what our clients do. Like, that's what I do. That's what our clients do. And so, yes, that is a big thing. And that's something that we establish at the beginning. And we try to establish what makes sense. We have personal guidelines for check off your list for the quality of life of our team members. That is one of the things that is important to us. A quality of life is one of the reasons why I started check off your list for our clients, for me, and our team members are part of that equation. So we try to give them a reasonable time frame with which to respond. And a response is often just a confirmation. Yeah, I've got this. I'll get this to you by this time. And the whole concept of that is under promise, over deliver.
I love that. That's my philosophy as well. Always, because then I'm always impressed with myself.
Yes. Met my deadline again. Yeah. And so we often will tell our team members to tell the client, hey, I'll get that to you by tomorrow, close of business, but you better be planning on sending it tomorrow morning. Like, that's your plan. So that, let's say you get it and we go, oh, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting for whatever reason. Ideally, that rarely happens, but you know what that's like. You get something back and I did not explain that well. And as soon as you see it, you know where you went wrong explaining it. You can see how they made their assumptions and decisions. But now if that went at 5 o'clock and you needed it at 5 o'clock, there's no correction time. There's no time to fix anything. Exactly. Ideally, that's worst case scenario, doesn't happen, but we always need that window. We always want that. So that's part of how we set those expectations with our clients and with our team members. We don't tell our clients we want to send it early, but of course. Ideally, our team members know to build that buffer in, and they look like the hero because the client's not even looking for it till that afternoon. Hopefully that'd be great, but they get it in the morning and then everybody wins. The client has less stress because, oh, it's already taken care of. She's got this. And then the team member has that time if something didn't happen or if something comes up for the team member. We all have life happen. And so if you have that buffer, you have that relaxed work style and atmosphere personally, which is good for their home life and their family and whatever on their end of things. So that's kind of how we deal with that. There are certain guidelines that we just set, like you can expect this because this makes sense. These are our business hours. So you should expect communication during that time. And if you want outside of those times, we can accommodate that, but that comes at a price because that's a sacrifice on everybody's end. And if that is valuable to you, it's worth every penny. Like really,
you're setting those expectations at the end of the day, and you're providing the options, and it's clearly defined. As well. I think that's the important aspect of that. So let's talk technology. Now, obviously, when you started off with a laptop and internet connection, and you were off, right? Yeah. Right now, let's fast forward 10 years. I mean, what important role does technology play in your business in terms of your back end, in terms of managing your business? Not necessarily your client's business, but your business. I would imagine that you have something in there for CRM and everything else, integrations and stuff like that. Yes. So our CRM at the beginning was probably an Excel spreadsheet, back when I was starting out, we all started with Excel, our good friend. But it's grown from there. And so on our back end, yes, of course, we have a CRM system that tracks all of our leads and where things come from, our conversion rate, how all of that works. We also, on the same side, track as people leave for whatever reason. Sometimes we grow people outgrow us and we're like, you need full-time, like you need someone solely dedicated to you. And that's a win for us as much as anything else, because their business is growing. So we track that as well to see, well, why are they transitioning
And is that something we need to evaluate as a company and be better and, streamline things or whatever? Or is that like, kudos to you, this is awesome, we're excited, happy for you, we're here if you ever need anything? And then we have our internal communication things that we use a lot of Microsoft. We are, because of being on the business side of things, Microsoft all around. Yep.
That was my next question.
SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, the task planner, that name has changed a few times. And Intuit is also another one that we use a lot for time tracking, for invoicing, those types of things. And so we have a lot of different systems for internal storage, communication, and project management, that type of stuff. So yes, it's evolved a lot from the sticky notes on my desktop and my Excel spreadsheets.
I come from that environment. Trust me, I understand fully on that.
Yeah.
Let's talk personal impact. Okay, what is that one thing that you needed to change within yourself to get you to where you are today over the course of your entrepreneurial journey? What is that one thing within yourself that you needed to change?
So for me, that was to not be a workaholic. And I'm still working on that today.
It doesn't look like you're not a workaholic.
So I guess it depends on what you mean by workaholic. We all still have our things that we need to work on. But there was a point in my life where I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning and not going to bed till after 11 something, 12 something, not have time with my husband, and because kids and business came first. And so that was a period of time. And that is at the time what I knew and what it took for me to take check off your list to the next level. But what really took check off your list beyond that and took us to where we are now was when I learned to outsource and let go and focus on where my expertise is and realize that type of a day is not sustainable. My productivity, my efficiency and effectiveness didn't work for check off your list. It didn't work for my family. It didn't work for my marriage, all of that. And so I think that is probably the biggest thing, was to not be solely focused on work and making that happen and finding the balance to where I can take a break from work and things are still moving and forward and functioning, and I can have all the things that I enjoy, because I do a lot. I run Check Off Your List. I host a podcast. I'm an actor in the Columbus area here in Ohio, and I homeschool my children, and so I'm busy. I still run a full day, but it's full of things that I'm passionate about and that I enjoy and that get me up in the morning and drive me through to the next thing, because I'm looking forward to it, rather than dragging myself out of bed to just make it through another day and hope I get through my list of things to survive that day. I think that is what I've had to do.
It's picking your focus, right? It's saying, instead of me trying to do everything, let me pick the thing that I'm really good at and focus on that. And I think it can also translate, for other entrepreneurs into, I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle. There's been questions on the previous interviews as well, where they're trying to focus on 10 different things at the same time. And you need to narrow that down and say, okay, let me focus on this core. Let me get that 100% right. Let me follow that one path where I'm really passionate and I'm really good at, and drive with that, because that's going to open up, everything else in your business, and outsource the rest of the stuff. If you want to outsource it or close it off or stop doing it or whatever the case is.
Yeah, sometimes it's saying no, for sure.
Say no. I think most powerful word, right? To learn to say no as an entrepreneur. Say, no, let me get rid of 8 of these things. I'm going to focus on these 2 things. Let me go forward with that. So I love that. Have you had any, what we can call failures or setbacks within your business that, and what did you learn from those? In other words, at a time in your business, because right now people are looking at Rachel and they're saying, okay, they're kind of picturing the young brunette lady, sitting there behind her desk with her laptop, 10 years ago, and now suddenly she's got a global business. It's just been upward spiral for her. but that's not necessarily true, right? So because I mean,
Sure.
you've had your ups and downs.
Yes.
Take us
Yes.
through maybe one of those, one of those failures or setbacks to kind of humanize you to everyone else.
Yeah.
So you've been there, done that, and you got through it. Because the whole idea of these interviews is to inspire others that are in those positions to say, you know what, we've all been through that. You can do that. You can get out of the crap, that you're in.
Sure.
So tell us a story.
The thing that comes to mind for me as far as that goes is back to the whole thing. I'm not great at managing a team. So I was figuring that out, and how I figured that out or mistakes,
of course.
realizing I was underperforming. And so part of that was also in hiring, and so I have not always made the best hiring choices. There have been times where everything looked good on paper. They had all the right boxes checked and everything worked out well. And then when it came right down to it, it didn't pan out. And that happened when I was doing the hiring. Now, not to say everything is perfect 100% of the time. If anybody could bat 1,000, they could do it all the time. Well, that's something special. No one can do that. But at that particular time, there was a team member that I had hired that seemed great, said all the right things, did all the right things. And within a month, we had kind of promoted them and everything seemed to have worked well. And that fell flat and cost us time, money, clients, because all of a sudden I realized because of my poor management, we're a couple weeks in and I'm like, so where are the results of all this stuff? And I realized projects were behind, things weren't getting done. And I'm just like, what happened? Like, how did we get here? I thought we were good. Like, I thought I was watching. Obviously I wasn't. And so we had to go to survival mode. We grabbed the closest bucket and started throwing water.
I love that.
And so that was one of those things where we then had to spend a good portion of the following months making that right. And one of the things that check off your list, if we didn't do it right the first time, we'll make it right at our own expense, like that, because you paid for it to be done.
One of your guarantees.
And so we did that. We stood behind it. We corrected it. Things are good. That was years ago, but that was part of me learning, well, I missed that, and I need someone else who's going to be better at that type of thing. So that's one of the first things that comes to mind when, one of those times where we had a hurdle to overcome. I didn't see it coming, blindsided, that type of a thing. So we've all been there for sure.
100%. So you're also, you do acting as well. You're married. You have 4 kids. Am I right?
Yes.
It's 4.
Yep.
You got
4 kids.
4 children, right? You've got this business and you're doing a ton of other little things on the side too. How do you find the work-life balance at the end of the day between being a mom and a wife and, a CEO?
Yes. So it's a twofold thing. One of the things is constantly, and this is an activity I go back to whenever I start to get stressed or overwhelmed, which is, depending on what's going on, can happen more frequently than others. And so I make a list of all the things that I'm responsible for. I keep this list and I update it, when I start to get overwhelmed, of everything that has to do with all the things. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small, just everything that I'm trying to keep in my brain space and trying to take care of because it's my responsibility. And then I start going through and marking those things that I have to do. I can't outsource interviewing on my podcast. I can't outsource when I walk on stage. There are certain things that I have to do. And so those are the things, and those are my priority. Past that, there are other things that now I need to look at that and say, who else do I need to hire? Who do I need to outsource? And getting creative about that. It's not always a virtual assistant. That isn't always the solution. I outsource other things. I homeschool, but I have a tutor who does lesson plans and does all of that for my kids' school, because I did not homeschool to be a teacher. Never. I was not the little girl who wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. I did my time in school. And so I didn't want to do that. And so I outsourced that because I homeschooled to spend time with my kids, to be a big voice in their life and to not miss those moments that I want to be there for, because that's what I chose to prioritize. That's why I do that. And so looking at each of those things that way, and creatively outsourcing, then all of a sudden each thing has less that I have to do. And so I can accomplish more with less of my time because other people are being more effective in those other things. And so they're getting done faster and better than when I was trying to do it myself and trying to do everything myself. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I think the reoccurring theme here in everything that you've discussed so far is very much don't be scared to outsource, certain aspects of your business, your life, or whatever the case is, to make you more effective and more productive at the end of the day. So one of the questions that I've got here is, have you found that your friend circle has gotten much smaller or changed as you have set new and bigger goals for your business?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because that is actually something.
A good question.
COVID and all of that stuff. Relationships are weird for a lot of people right now. Like, I just think in the circles that I have friends with, and people are all not sure even how to proceed in some relationships and friendships, just with all those other dynamics, which that's not really what we're talking about right now, but it's just interesting. Yes. I would say I have had to become more intentional about my friendships, and meaning, if I want to see you as my friend, I need to make that step and effort and make that happen. And so there are certain friends that I'm very good friends with that I don't actually see a ton, but we go out at least once a month and we will have dinner, drinks, and sit there for hours to catch up and do that type of thing. And those are some of my best friends, even though we don't necessarily see each other all the time, whatever, but they are people who challenge me, encourage me, and are heading in the same direction that I am, and that we can, iron sharpens iron type of a thing, to where those are the real relationships. So like my real relationships and friendships have narrowed down, but that's it. That's,
and it's been replaced with more people. Yeah, it's been replaced with more intentional relationships.
Yeah,
and people that are aligned with your vision and goals, and that, or rather at the same level in terms of energy. Let's call it energy. That you are at the end of the day. Yes,
and I'm a very the more the merrier person. I'm an outgoing person. I'm an extrovert. I love people, and so I love to make a new friend and that type of thing. But I often will find that relationship goes both ways, and if when we say, hey, we need to hang out, and you don't pull your phone out to put that on the calendar right now, it's not going to happen. Like, and if people are like, yeah, we need to hang out, we'll get that. And then you follow up with hey, we were going to get together, how's next week? And then it's crickets, that type of thing. Like those are the friendships that, like, I'm here when you're here, but they're the ones that are harder to maintain. And the more my business has grown, the busier I've gotten, the older my children have gotten, where I'm a chauffeur more. And those relationships have waned some because we don't pull out our phones. We have to both pull out our phone and say, here's my calendar next week. When are we doing it? And I think that's, I don't know, those are my thoughts on that.
My worst problem is, I also deal with clients across the globe. Got a few thousand people doing my courses and that. And I mean, I basically work 7 days a week, but, I'm passionate about what I do. So, I could be watching TV even, I could be watching Netflix, and an idea would pop in my mind, and I'd go like, oh, wait, I got to try this, right? But when things happen, I tend to I would set plans, but inevitably I'd end up canceling many of them, simply because something has actually happened and something's come up. And I think the biggest challenge I faced early on in my entrepreneurial journey was my friends didn't understand, not being entrepreneurs themselves. They didn't understand the complexities of entrepreneurship, that when something goes wrong or something needs to be done, you got to do it. It's not that you can say, oh, well, I'll leave it till Monday and we'll focus it on a Monday. No, there's no such thing. You've got to okay, I've got to get to it straight away. So let's talk about mentorship and coaching, right? Or mentorship and coaching, right? Have you had a mentor or a coach? I mean, obviously your father was one of your mentors. I picked that up right in the beginning, right? Have you had other mentors and coaches that have guided you on your journey?
Yeah. So that was one of the first things I did when I started my business. Not like the first, but within the first year or two, couple years, I started working with a business coach. And that has stayed ever since. Like I've continued to work with a business coach, and that has looked different in the varying stages of check off your list.
Of course.
At the beginning, it was very much just basic coaching. Like, I've never experienced this before. I don't know how to make this decision. What do I even think about? And my business coach just talking me through those things. Like, what insurance? Now what? Like,
exactly. Why?
Like that. Like, I'm 20 something years old. I bought insurance for my house, but what do I need? What makes sense? Stuff like that. You don't know what you don't know. And so mentorship is so big. And that was crucial all the way through. And I still have a business coach and a mentor that I meet with every other week. And I've also then on my own started growing myself as Check Off Your List has grown. I have a different role and I function at a different level. And if I'm not going to grow and I'm not going to change, I can only take Check Off Your List so far.
So you're upskilling yourself too, you online courses, whatever that may be.
Yes. So it's all of that has allowed Check Off Your List to grow, because you can't take your business further than you've been. So you need someone else who's been further to help guide you along that way. And you have to be able to grow too, or else you're not going to keep your business and it will outgrow you.
So that was actually my next question, is that, that benefit that it's actually offered you at the end of the day. So, I mean, what is that one thing that you could say it takes to be a successful entrepreneur? If you had to pick one thing, what is that?
One thing? That's horrible.
I know this is an extremely hard question because there's so many, but if the first one that comes to mind, what is it? Is it perseverance?
You need to be willing to do what other people weren't.
I love that.
I was willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do in order to run and start and do Check Off Your List. I think that would be, from my experience, that would be it.
Okay. So what's next for you and Check Off Your List? What's the future look like for Rachel and Check Off Your List?
Yes, well, we are continuing to grow, still in a growth phase, still, growing our company, our team, and our client base, all of that. Part of that is that I started a podcast to help business owners learn how to optimize their time and learn how to outsource and not take all the years that it took me to figure it out. Allow me to show you what I've learned from my mistakes. And from there, like now that we've kind of done that, I am really toying with the idea, and I'm figuring out what the next thing is of writing a book or creating some courses to then continue helping entrepreneurs become that next level to scale their business and to grow by really learning how to hone in on their expertise and what they're passionate about and outsource the rest and what that looks like and how to do that creatively. So I'm still picking really between, do I write a book? Do I write a course? And probably both, honestly, over time, but what makes sense when, that type of thing. So those are the next things that I've got on my radar as I
like that.
2022.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. So in our membership area, we've got a question here is she's saying, so it's Pam. Pam is saying that she was a PA. She recently got retrenched. She's been a PA for 10 years and she now wants to become a virtual assistant. What are those first steps that she should take to become a virtual assistant?
Yeah, I would, the first thing I did was figure out what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, what I enjoy doing. Like, where can you really niche your skills so that you have something to offer, so that you can say, I am better than the next person at this, because that's okay. You need to be better and you can do that. So what is it for you? Because we all have it. And so what is that? And hone in on those skills and things that you might need to really take that next, go to that next level, and then start marketing yourself and making yourself available. And, for each person, that's
marketing yourself to the right people as well, is because you got to identify your ideal customer and market to those people. Don't just go market to everyone, because you're going to get a lot of people that are going to want to pay you $2 or $5 an hour, or something like that, or pay you later, or, that kind of crap. Go for what you really want at the end of the day. Set that bar, I think, and kind of aim for that.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely made those mistakes when I started out taking those smallest clients. I would take clients that are an
Taking
hour
anyone.
Yeah, take anyone. And I mean, you need to make some money. So, but really knowing your worth and knowing that you are truly providing value to them and that it's worth, buying a package of so many hours, and that is how I truly help you. When you really buy in and you give me enough time that I can actually help you. There's not a lot that can be done on 4 hours a month or an hour a month. There's very minimal productivity at that point when you're talking the whole big picture. And so being confident in that and being confident in knowing who you want to work with and that knowing your value that way is another big thing that I wish I would have known more when I started to save me some of the headache of the little clients that I started with.
Exactly. So is there anything you want to leave with anyone that's watching now live on pretty much all the platforms and the people that are going to watch the replay? Is there anything you'd like to leave them with in terms of words of wisdom? Rachel's words of wisdom.
Well, I don't know. That's a lot of pressure.
I know, right? I'm putting you on the spot here.
We have covered so much.
I think we've kind of covered pretty much everything at the end of the day. And if I can fill in here for you and you can add on to this, is I think part of Rachel's success is she identified early on that she can't do it all herself. And she needs to, you need to outsource certain key aspects. You need to trust. And I think trust came across a lot in this conversation is you need to trust other people to perform and manage those people, and let them manage the rest. You've got to trust that process. I think that's quite an important thing because as entrepreneurs, we don't. No. It's the hardest thing for us to kind of suck in our pride and say, listen, we're actually not really that good at this. It's actually better for me to phone Rachel and say, Rachel, let me humble myself and say, you know what, I kind of really suck at my graphics or my copy or whatever it is, or my accounting or whatever. Help me out.
Well, and I would say you inspired me. The words of wisdom that I would share would be to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And that is what I've done at Check Off Your List. I wasn't good at managing a team, so I found someone who was smarter than me at managing a team. And she can manage a team in circles around me all day long, but it makes me look good, so I'm good with it.
Oh, I love that.
And same with HR. Our HR person is amazing. She does so much better than I would ever do. And rather than be intimidated by that and unsure, I just call her up and be like, Misty, I don't know. What do I do? And she always knows. She's, well, this is what you would do in that scenario. This is whatever.
So you created this perfect team. I absolutely love it. Listen, Rachel, sorry, we did go a bit over time. I do apologize for that. But it was so awesome chatting to you. And I mean, you just shared so much value to everyone. I just want to thank you for that. And
my pleasure. It was a lot of fun to talk with you.
Fantastic. I look forward to chatting to you again soon. Maybe in 2022. I want to hear where you've taken the business. We're gonna chat then. So Rachel, listen, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and we'll catch up soon again.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.